Hello, in this video, we're going to look at the next category in our learning, which is our bivariate quantitative data. Okay, so at this point, we only focus on one variables and try to understand, hey, what kind of insight we can get that one variable. In the real world, we usually try to find the relationship. So for instance, if I increase in the variety of the goods, will that help me to increase in the sale? So you're looking for the relationship between two variables. So if these two variables are quantitative, and we are able to use this called a scatter plot to help us to identify the relationship. Okay, so now let's look at what is a scatter plot. So a scatter plot can convey pattern in data pairs that would not be apparent from the table. So a scatter plot is a starting point for bivariate data analysis in which we investigate the association and the relationship between two quantitative variables. So the key here is if you are thinking use the scatter plot because you want to identify the relationship between two quantitative variables. So if one of the variable is categorical data, you cannot use it. You cannot creating scatter plot. Okay, you have to make sure both variable are quantitative data. And also, your main goal for this plot is trying to find the relationship between these two variables. So if you have no interest to find a relationship, and the scatter plot is not your to-go method. Okay. So I'm showing you this example. Show a scatter plot with the life expectancy on the x-axis. And our vertical axis is the birth rate on the birth rate is my y-axis. So in this illustration, they seem to be an association between our life expectancy and the birth rate, right? And so it's almost look like the higher the birth rate, because you can see, okay, as you can see, the from 20, the average is here. And then when we look at the higher 40 here, right? So it's look like the higher the life expectancy, and the lower of the the higher the birth rate, then the lower life expectancy, right? So there's kind of inverse relationship. So we find this kind of correlation. So it's just a correlation. We cannot say the correlation means causal relationship. So no cause and effect relationship is implied, because in this example, both variables could be influenced by a third variable that is not mentioned. So that's what I want to emphasize. From the scatter plot, you only can identify association, but you cannot say the causation. Okay, so now I want to talking about different kind of relationship or pattern rating, right? We not only just creating the scatter plot, but also we need to know how to interpret it. Again, the goal is try to identify the relationships. So after you plot in your scatter plot, and you are able to see the following 6 patterns. So if you see the scatter plot, and if you're trying to using a line to approximating the relationship, and we actually call them as called a trend line. Okay, so like this one, it's go upward, and we call it a positive relationship. So thinking about your supply curve. So everybody learned the principle of micro classes. So for the supply, here is the price, and here is the quantity. So the quantity and the price had a positive relationship, means the higher the price, the more quantity will produce, right? The higher the price, the more quantity will be produced. So this is a positive relationship. Similarly for the second chart here, if you try to draw a line, again, it's going to be a vertical. I don't know why it's keep going that. So it will be a vertical line go up. But the reason we say this is a strong and this is considered as weak is literally because when you have more dots are very well lined in a straight line, we consider as strong. But for the second dot, although we see this upward trend, but we also see a lot of the line that is very far away from this trend line, right? So in that situation, it's considered as weak. And then the last one is no pattern, because maybe you can see it's like horizontal line. So if the trend line is more like horizontal line, we consider as a no pattern or no correlation. And the opposite scenario would be the downward trend. So think about this as your demand curve, right? Demand curve. So when the price go up and then the quantity demanded go down, When the price go down, the quantity demand go up. So they go opposite direction. That's considered as a negative relationship. So they just, the two variable moving in the opposite direction. And so this is considered strong, and this is considered as weak. Again, the reason is because the strong relationship, most of the dots are very close to the trend line. For the weak relationship, we have many dots are far away from trend line. Okay, so the last one we consider as called a non-linear pattern, because you try to find the trend line instead of straight up or down curve. You are able to see this kind of curve, that you see a curvature. So in that scenario, we call it a non-linear pattern. Okay, so that is our scatter plot. You need to be able to distinguish whether it's a strong, whether it's a positive or negative relationship, or no relationship, or non-linear pattern relationship. Okay, so in our next video, we're going to look at is how can we use Excel to developing this scatter plot.